so soon we're talking about J.K. Rowling again. I didn't expect that she would say anything worth talking about after we recently covered her, I guess, much older remarks about Lolita. You know, wow, Lolita is such a tragic and beautiful love story. Like, ooh, yikes. And this is the lady who's now supposed to be saying, oh, she protects children. She wants to fight for children. Like, after saying that Lolita is a beautiful love story? Okay. All right. Well, anyway, so J.K. Rowling, you know, she lives in a country where, like, frankly, they don't even need to keep talking about this. Why? Like, British people, you don't need to keep talking about how children don't deserve to transition. It's illegal for them to transition now anyway. Wow. Like, seriously, it's so frustrating to me that they feel the need to keep beating this dead horse because, yeah, like, wow, congrats. You've won in the UK. You've won. You don't need to keep hammering on this, but yet, we like, J.K. Rowling has nothing better to do with her time. She can't even celebrate the win. She has to keep talking about how trans kids don't deserve healthcare, or like probably she's also against social transition, I would say at this point. Anyway, we're looking at an article from Pink News, which has her tweet in it because she said something egregious. It's probably in the title of this video, so you've already seen what she said. She's responding to someone called Jules Bouet. This is a tiny account. Like, J.K. Rowling does this. She's responding to an account with only 582 followers saying, in terms of necessity, there's literally over 100 years of evidence that transitioning lessens or cures gender dysphoria and is the only thing that has been shown to do that in over 100 years of research and other attempts at curing it. So this is, like, when we say transition is the evidence-based healthcare for trans people, you know, we have tried to put trans people on antidepressants. We have tried to put trans people on antipsychotics. We have tried to put people in, like, therapy that will resolve their gender problems. We've tried to say, oh, it's actually just trauma. And we've tried to treat trans people like they're just delusional. But trans people don't respond to those treatments unless they also happen to have that issue. Like, if a trans person has psychosis, then yes, you can treat the psychosis by treating it in the way that you treat delusions and psychosis. But their gender dysphoria, which is the medical term that we've come up with to describe this particular phenomenon of, like, your brain and your understanding of your gender and your sex in your brain is different from how your body phenotypically expresses, and like, there's a dissonance between those two things. Medically, the distress that you experience between, like, those things not matching up is gender dysphoria, right? And so we say that people's gender dysphoria can resolve, or I guess another way you could call it is it can be cured by access to social and physical transition. You know, like, if you have dysphoria because, let's say, you were assigned male at birth, and then people start perceiving you as a woman and treating you as a woman, and you have breasts and you get bottom surgery and your face looks like you're a beautiful woman, then you don't have anything to be dysphoric about anymore, hypothetically. Some people still have things like, oh, I'm so worried about my broad shoulders or whatever. Like, there are different things that people feel dysphoria over, but you can basically cure the dysphoria. I have socially and medically transitioned, and I do still want some procedures that I haven't yet had done. I don't have $50,000 right now. I'm trying to raise $5,000 so that I can move 2,000 miles across the country. Check the links in the description. But, like, I don't have very much dysphoria anymore because I transitioned and resolved it. My voice is much deeper now, and my hairline changed, and, like, my body physically changed. And so the things that I was dysphoric about, I no longer feel that way because I medically treated that. And socially, basically everybody that I interact with on a regular basis treats me like I am trans and like I am the gender that I say that I am. You know, everybody who I live with, uses the correct pronouns and they treat me with respect. Like those are the things that cause dysphoria, is like the social dissonance and the physical dissonance. And you can treat that and functionally cure it. Again, if you have the genitals that you don't want to have and you have a genital surgery, what is there for you to be upset about, right? And that, again, we have tried numerous different ways of treating trans people. Treating it like it's dysphoria, treating it like it's just gay but extreme, and nothing else is shown to have anywhere near the efficacy. It's not nearly as effective any other treatment besides social and medical transition. However, J.K. Rowling, in response to this fact that we've been doing research on this for forever, and the very first surgeries for trans people were done in the early 1900s, J.K. Rowling just comes out swinging, says, "This is false." Oh my God, I didn't mean to click that. The vast majority of children grow out of gender dysphoria if allowed to go through puberty. The single best cure is letting nature take its course. Now, this is not a true statement. She's quoting SEGM, the Society for Evidence-Based Gender Medicine, which I'm pretty sure is very clearly rooted in, is this one of those ones that's very obviously transphobic and gives itself credence as though they are not transphobic? But the actual study that people claim, 80% of these kids will just desist. 80% of kids will just stop identifying as trans. That's 80% of the total people who came to the clinic with questions about their gender. And if there were any individuals who stopped going to the clinic and didn't say why, those were counted as they decided they weren't trans anymore, which is, I believe it's classified as a hate group. Okay. That's not how you do a study. That's not good evidence. So the one study that they have that says, 80% of kids don't identify this way anymore when they're older, it's very, very bad practice. It's not a reliable study in any shape or form. But yeah, they keep saying this. If you just force kids to go through their normal, natural puberty, quote unquote, then they will stop being trans. And many trans people recognize this as a form of conversion therapy. You're basically saying, if we just don't let you cut your hair, if we don't let you grow out your hair, if we don't let you go on puberty blockers, which they're pausing medications that give you a couple years of extra time to think about it. They give you a couple years of extra, speaking to doctors and therapists to figure out what it is that you actually want or need as a trans teenager. We don't even offer this to most kids, first of all. But yeah, the idea that, if we just don't let you do these things, you'll just decide you're not trans anymore. If a kid is having distress at the onset of puberty, making them go through a puberty that causes them increasing distress, and you can keep tabs on this, hey, are you still feeling like this is causing you a lot of distress and you don't like it? You're basically torturing children for no particular reason. You're literally just forcing children to go through a destabilizing biological phenomenon that is causing them distress. It makes it harder for them to get good grades. It makes it harder for them to socially integrate with their peers. And it makes them then have to pay tens of thousands of dollars to fix things that you could have just stopped from happening in the first place. If you put a child that was assigned female on puberty blockers before they develop breasts, then they don't have to spend $10,000 on top surgery. If you want to claim that, they're going to be lifelong big pharma, whatever, okay, well, a lifetime of hormones is going to be cumulatively less money than the amount of money that they have to spend on these corrective surgeries. And even if the person gets corrective surgeries, they still might not ever be able to fully socially integrate, as opposed to trans people who are allowed to transition at a young age and get puberty blockers. They can just completely integrate into society, and you would not be able to tell that they're trans. Some people who transition later also end up completely socially integrated, and you can't tell that they're trans, but it's less common, it's much more difficult, and it costs way more money. So J.K. Rowling wants to cure trans people. She doesn't want to cure gender dysphoria. I mean, she frames it like she wants to cure gender dysphoria. Oh, the vast majority of children grow out of gender dysphoria, which again is debunked. That's not true. But the cure, the best cure for it, letting nature take its course. There's also like a naturalism fallacy here, where people believe that something that is happening to you naturally is therefore better. But like cancer is natural. Do we want to just like let cancer run its course? Is letting nature run its course the best course of action for cancer? I think most people would say no. If this thing has a tendency to harm you and kill you, which not all cancers kill you, you know. Sir Ian McKellen has had prostate cancer for years, and he just gets it checked on every once in a while. He's not had to do any treatment for it. Like, not all cancer is terminal per se, but we still generally say that it's not good to just let it take its course, you know? Hi, I'm Alexander, and this is Mitternacht. You should hit the like button and subscribe and check out the Patreon. And ooh, look at this hoodie I'm wearing. It's merch. Check it out. Links in the description. Thank you. Yeah, and I agree with you, Mama. They don't want trans people to transition early because they're harder to spot. They need us to be easily pointed at and ridiculed in public to affirm their biases. I have said this before. One of the markers of a genocide is like making the group obvious to outsiders, right? So putting the pink triangle on gay people and trans people, putting the Star of David on Jewish people. And I also believe that preventing trans people from changing their identity documentation and preventing trans people from having preventative medication as children is a way of marking us and making it obvious that we are the outcast group. Because yeah, it's way harder to discriminate against us if you can't tell. And like, this is a fairly common belief that the idea that we want to cure trans people of their transness, basically, like that we want to just say, oh, they'll just grow out of it. That is also explicitly genocidal, because you're saying you want there to be fewer trans people. You know, instead of saying, yes, I recognize that the best evidence-based cure for gender dysphoria is transition, like then you have completely healthy, integrated trans people. And they're living their best lives, and they're just kind of, you know, being contributing members to society. They're spending their income on boosting the economy instead of funneling more money from surgery into the pharmaceutical industry or like the surgeons. That is less desirable to these people like J.K. Rowling than people who know that they're trans internally, but pretend to be cisgender and refuse to transition because of all the social stigma or because they were supposed to grow out of it. Oh, it's supposed to just be a phase. You know, like the idea that you wouldn't want happy trans people, you would rather have miserable people who are pretending not to be trans. Yeah, and that's why they don't want it taught in schools. They want to prevent people from learning about it until they're adults and they feel like it's too late. How many times have we heard someone between the ages of 18 and 22 saying, oh my God, it's too late for me. I can't transition now. I'm always going to look like a man. I'm always going to be ugly. Like, lots of us don't transition until, you know, we're in our 50s. I transitioned relatively young, but I am also violently autistic, and I had no concept of like the other people's opinions should impact me in any way, shape, or form. That was just my particular journey. But yeah, like these folks want trans people to believe it's too late. They don't want miserable trans people pretending to be cis. They want trans people dead. I mean, functionally, there's like, they'll take it. I think that they'll take it either way. If you are pretending to be cis and you're not transitioning and you're just miserable, that is an acceptable outcome to them. You know? They want there to not be any trans people participating in society as trans people. If you know you're trans internally, but you are not transitioning and you're not like even dressing different or cutting your hair different, then like functionally you are not trans to these people. Like you might as well just not be trans, and that to them is a desirable outcome. That's what she's saying here. Like, we would rather just have these people suffer through their puberty and like learn to live with it effectively. Violently Autistic sounds like a cool band name. Yeah, that's my new band name. Violently Autistic. So yeah, like these people want there to be as few trans people as possible. They would rather torture children by doing conversion therapy practices, like the whole watch and wait thing. That's not a neutral act. Like they keep saying, oh, letting a child socially transition is not a neutral act. Well, neither is like making them go through their quote unquote natural puberty. If you wanted to take a truly neutral position, the neutral position is puberty blockers for everybody until they're old enough to decide what they want to do. That's the only true neutral position, is like, yeah, because people being made to go through things that physically cannot be undone. Like some of the things from puberty are irreversible. And some people don't want to have to deal with that. And then, of course, you've got Elon Musk coming in. Where's Musky boy? Musky man. He comes in and says, J.K. Rowling is absolutely right. Almost every child goes through some kind of identity crisis during puberty. I don't think that's fucking true. I mean, most of the people in this chat are probably trans, but like, so first of all, I did not experience my transness as like an identity crisis. I mean, it's part of you finding your identity, sure. But I also don't think that it's just normal to go through an identity crisis during puberty because of your puberty. Like, it makes sense. Yeah, that's an age where your brain is developing and you're becoming the person that you're going to be and all this. But I think that that's different than you having a problem with puberty because of puberty. Like when you start growing breasts and you realize, oh, I'm transitioning from being a girl to being a woman, and that causes distress. And like that is a different thing. And like for some people, it's like, oh yeah, I'm becoming a woman. That means that there's a whole bunch of new things that I have to learn and pay attention to. But I don't think that most cis people who are assigned female at birth do what I did and fucking spend hours crying, listening to songs from Mulan and I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar, because the idea of transitioning into a woman was like so disruptive to me. It was very unpleasant for me to imagine growing older as a woman. Whereas now I'm trans and I like being trans and I look forward to aging as a trans person. And yes, I am a bit feminine. Like I have long hair. I mean, I really functionally, I have long hair and extremely short hair. I'm non-binary, like down to the way that I cut my hair. But yeah, like I don't experience that distress. So I think even if you were to say, okay, identity crises are a feature of growing up, it's different having an identity crisis that's like, do I want to be a cheerleader or do I want to be in the band? You know, like, do I want to follow my dad in his career because he wants me to do what he does? Or do I want to go to college and do something completely different? You know, like there's a difference between learning who you are versus having gender dysphoria. But cis people who have never experienced this will conflate them because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. But the reason why I wanted to comment on Musk in the first place really is like, He says it's deeply wrong to make them permanently infertile with, quote, puberty blockers. If they still wish to transition as adults, provided they are fully informed of the risk, they can make decisions as consenting adults. Like, I mean, yeah, sure. Again, like, we've already talked about all the problems with that. But a couple years of puberty blockers are generally not going to make someone permanently infertile. And, like, again, it's fucking weird for these people to be concerned about the fertility of children and teenagers. And if you're so concerned about the fertility of children and teenagers, just provide gamete saving as part of the procedure. Like, that's always, you know, again, I think it's really creepy to be concerned with whether children are fertile or not. And again, like, being on puberty blockers for 2 years is probably not going to have any permanent effects. But yeah, like, if you're so worried about it, then just store their eggs and their sperm, and then they will not have to deal with fertility problems because you've stored their gametes for future production. Not a big deal. Contrary Cloud says, if most kids have a crisis when they hit puberty, that is a social failure to educate and care for them. Yeah, like, I was educated about what puberty would entail when I was younger. And then as I grew up and actually physically experienced it, there was a distress with feeling like that was not reflective of who I was as a person, which is a very different problem. And yeah, if most kids have a crisis, that means that we haven't done a good enough job of educating them and preparing them. And, like, always good to keep in mind that Elon Musk has a trans daughter and they do not speak. And I'm sure that he blames the internet for, like, turning his kid trans or something, even though we all know that that is not possible. It's like not possible to turn people trans. And it's really not possible to turn them cis either. But that is what people like Elon Musk and J.K. Rowling want to do. They basically want to deprive trans people of medical care in the hope that they will stop being trans. I think J.K. Rowling's setting herself up for a lawsuit. I don't know if she's ever going to be held accountable for the widespread harm that she has done to trans people and trans people's healthcare access and stuff. Like, I don't have any idea. I don't think there is going to be any consequence for her. She's a billionaire. She's completely insulated from consequences for her actions. Even if she got sued, she has millions and billions of dollars. Like, Harry Potter merch is still selling. People are still going to the Harry Potter world at Universal Studios. She's going to be fine no matter what happens. Yeah, I don't know what else there is to say. Like, thanks, J.K. Rowling, for giving me more fodder for my channel, talking about how you want to cure trans people. And you want to cure trans kids by forcing them to go through a distressing puberty that causes, like, irreversible changes and deprive them of the opportunity to even get a couple years to think about it on puberty-pausing medication. Again, J.K. Rowling, you've already won. You've already won. It's already illegal in your country. Shut up about us. Leave us alone. What else is there to say? It's like, you might as well say you want to purge trans kids. Like, the idea that you want to cure them is terrifying. Last month was Pride. Now it's time for Wrath. Thank you so much to my patrons, including Tiago Nascimento, Mersh Rolvog, Jack, Amanda B., Michelle Winter, Wellington Marcus, Danielle McDonald, DZXN, Spooky Heather Sylvia, Pasnell Infinity, Suzanne Maynard, Sojo, Jamie Jam, Dizzy Quiche, Jericho, Kevin Young, Liam Hodgson, Athiet, Elavie Nobody, Mr. Atheist, Elizabeth Bartell, Celeste, Nova, and Michelle Frattaroli.